Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome to the stage tonight, Mr. Benjamin Franklin.
Well, I must confess that when I arrived here today, I was somewhat confused. Because today I read one of the newspapers and it described you as a mob. You do not look like a mob to me. You look like a group of patriots. But my goodness, what have you done with the vast wealth you have created? For too long, you have stood silent and allowed an ever-expanding government to feed its insatiable appetite for money and power. You have allowed this to happen, mostly in steps so small you hardly notice them. But now they're taking giant steps, aren't they? Well, I'm happy to see you finally awakened and have come to realize that this great nation that we delivered in 1787 at great sacrifice, the nation now entrusted to you, is in grave danger. This country became a superpower because you are a free people engaging in free enterprise. But now this country's treasure is being frittered away, and with it, its status in the world. Once I said that a penny saved is a penny earned. But your government doesn't think about saving. All it ever does is take more from you, regardless of who may be in power. I recall the words of Thomas Jefferson. To preserve our independence, he said, we must not let our rulers load us with perpetual debt. You, I'm sure, realize that you are being loaded with perpetual debt. You owe trillions, including hundreds of billions to foreign nations. My goodness, when we founded this nation, we scarcely knew what a billion was, let alone a trillion. And your government pays that debt by printing more currency. I recall that on April 15th, the date when you pay your taxes, many of you told Congress you don't like the way they're spending the money you send them. They ignored you. And they ignored you when you told them that the cap and trade bill would increase prices, reduce income, destroy jobs, and drive up the national debt, while having a minuscule effect on global temperatures. They ignored you then, and now they ridicule you, calling you a mob because you refuse to remain silent when you disagree. Well, I say, thank God that you're continuing to speak up. It could be that they have finally begun to hear you. Now, it may only be lip service, but I saw recently where they seem to be acknowledging that you don't trust them to handle your health care.
We can't back down either.
Doesn't surprise me in the least that you do not trust the government. They've already bankrupted Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. Why, do you know that the unfunded liability of those three programs exceeds $50 trillion? In 1758, when I wrote The Way to Wealth, I can assure you that one thing I did not advocate was to spend like a besotted sailor in order to achieve financial security. What I did say was, when you run into debt, you give to another power over your liberty. Now I ask you, to whom is this nation in debt?
China.
Correct. You owe the communist Chinese hundreds of billions of dollars. Is that a nation you wish to have power over your liberty?
No!
Similarly, I said that the borrower is a slave to the lender. Now, all you have to do to realize that is to look at the industry that manufactures those wonderful conveyances you use. I believe you call them automobiles. These manufacturers went into debt to our federal government. So now, the government tells automobile companies whom to hire, what kinds of cars to manufacture, how much their top executives should be paid, which dealerships shall remain open, and which shall close. My friends, we anticipated dangers like these back in 1787 when we formed the Constitution. Here is what I told Congress then. As all history informs us, there has been in every state and kingdom a constant kind of warfare between the governing and the governed, the one striving to obtain more for its support and the other to pay less. And this has alone occasioned great convulsions, actual civil wars, ending either in dethroning the prince or enslavement of the people. We see the revenues of princes constantly increasing, and we see that they are never satisfied, but always in want of more. And the more the people are discontented with the oppression of taxes, the greater the need the prince has of money to distribute among his partisans and pay those that are to suppress all resistance and enable him to plunder at pleasure. There is scarce a king in 100 who would not, if he could, follow the example of Pharaoh. First, get all of the people's money, and then take unto himself all of their land, and then make them and their children servants forever. Do you have such leaders in America today? Well, it's not the America I worked so hard to give birth to. In 1776, when we signed the Declaration of Independence, we pledged our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor to the cause of inalienable rights and freedom. We did this because we would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. Your government has expanded its power far beyond what we imagined in 1787 when we wrote the Constitution. A government that seeks to control private industry, control the banks, control energy, control healthcare, control every aspect of your life is to be feared. And as Thomas Jefferson said, when the people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. This gathering today, as you've been often reminded, the largest in this wonderful state, should reassure you that there are others who believe as you do, who feel that we must take our country back, who believe that the Declaration of Independence is still relevant today, that government derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, who believe that the Constitution means what it says and not what some activist judge thinks it ought to mean. Will your children and grandchildren live on their knees drowning in a sea of debt, or will you save this nation by taking it back? Can you keep it? You've begun the process, but it is only a beginning. You must remain vigilant. You must remain active and informed. You must speak out when your liberties come under assault. Remember what I have said about maintaining liberty. A nation of well-informed citizens who prize the rights which God have given them cannot be enslaved. It is in ignorance that tyranny begins. Don't let this nation fall into tyranny. I thank you all for your kind attention. God bless each and every one of you, and may God bless the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Benjamin Franklin.